Hello and welcome to Dinis Guarda, Cities ABC Open Business Council YouTube podcast series. Once again, here we are with another fabulous interview and trying to talk with people that are changing the world with their creativity, with their innovation, with their ideas, and a lot of sweat. I would say that most of the people here, we passed 200 people, are some of the people that I saw that have been having an ethical work, of creativity, of discipline, and as well dealing with the complexities of high-profile technology and how this can change the world. It's not easy dealing with all these things from Web 3.0 to metaverse to a lot of the things that make the fourth industrial revolution we are in, and all the disruption around our times with great things and some less great things. But in the end of the day, it's about people. And people is what makes this YouTube podcast series, the ideas, how we can change the world and take it forward. And that's as well what you do with the platform citiesabc.com and openbusinesscouncil.org and fashionabc.org as well. There are organizations and platforms that we try to nurture as hubs to empower individuals and creators and the initiatives, startups and accelerators and directors that actually are taking this forward. So I welcome to our series Jason Michael Primrose. And I'm very excited about this interview because it's kind of a combination of different skills from Jason. So Jason is a serial entrepreneur, a writer, a storyteller, and a creator that has been putting his capacities as strategist, experimental marketing personality, and influencer. And from a family of literature and poetry and prose, things I don't speak much on my channel, but are very dear to me, that has been magnetized and as well expanding the idea of the world of storytelling. And storytelling is about humanity. Humanity is about stories, and now we use technology for these stories. So Jason has been working the 12 hard years in consulting for big brands and creative marketing. And right now he's been pushing his platform and brainchild, the Lost Children of Andromeda, which is the first IP under the TCC umbrella. So Jason has been working with the Primrose Productions, XOMAD Digital Marketing, Cherries, and a lot of other different organizations. He founded as well a consulting business called Cage Creative, and has been working with different areas. So we're going to be talking about Cluster Chronicles, The Lost Children of Andromeda, and Jason. So Jason, welcome to our series.
Hello. That was a great introduction. Wow. I mean, I didn't realize there was so much stuff.
No, it's really impressive. So I want to start, I always start by the basis. And before we go to the Lost Children of Andromeda, which is a great name, science fiction, which is as well one area that I like, but as well very open to a lot of different areas of novel and storytelling. So let's start with you. So you have quite a unique background from business to creativity industries and so forth. And I think when I talk with people, I always try to somehow dismantle in a good way the different things that made you make each of us a successful personality. And actually a lot of successful personalities is made of a lot of trial and errors and sometimes failures, but as well about education, about backgrounds, and about things that made the moments where we are now. So if you could talk about that background of yours, I would love to start with that.
Yeah, okay. So, you know, I always knew I wanted to be a writer, but for a creative in any way. I mean, I used to love to sing, I love to dance, I love to act when I was young. And, you know, as I grew up in my teen years, I was like, okay, less and less things seem possible. But writing always seemed possible because it was something I could do. It came so easily to me. And so I went to college to study English. I ended up not liking the English curriculum very much. I ended up actually leaving college before graduating. And I did a few odd jobs. You know, I delivered pizzas, I worked at restaurants, I was like the front desk manager at a gym. And this is at like 25 years old. And then I was in Virginia at the time, where I grew up. And I was like, you know what, this isn't working. I'm going to try another city where maybe I could, you know, reinvent my life, like start anew. And that's when I went to LA. And LA was basically like this explosion of opportunities where I got my first job at an agency through a good friend of mine, where I learned all about social media marketing before it was even like a thing, which was back in 2011. I learned about influencer marketing. I learned about experience marketing. And we were doing all these really cool events and activations where people got to get product in exchange for speaking about the brand and the campaign positively. So it was like the first, it was the first, these were like the first influencer campaigns. And I basically took that knowledge and that experience and continued to build a career in digital and influencer marketing, and eventually went into brand, storytelling, social media management. And I ended up working across so many industries. I worked for beauty, I worked in fashion, I worked in tech, I worked in entertainment, I even worked in cannabis for a little bit. So, and then now like Web3 and literature. So I've kind of done a lot of really fun things. And the whole thing I really learned was just that storytelling is the fabric of all, like, of all things. That's basically what I was doing for all of these roles, is telling stories through events, telling stories through influencer conversations, telling stories through campaign ideas, telling stories through product creation, names, you know. So I was really always being creative. And then at some point, I realized that I wanted to be creative for myself, which brought about the reimagination of my book series. And I was thinking to myself, if I did anything in my life, I would want to publish the series that I wrote when I was a kid. And so that took me on a whole new path, because I wanted to publish it myself, and I wanted to be this whole different thing with pictures and music and immersive. And so, yeah, so, you know, and everything I learned at all of those jobs was everything I needed for the business. You know, I learned about logistics, I learned about, you know, budgeting, I learned about, you know, digital marketing terms, CPM, CPA, all that stuff. I would have never known any of that. I wouldn't have been prepared. Even how to work with other creatives like photographers and artists and stuff like that, graphic artists. So yeah, it was like I kind of got my life degree, and then everything that all the skills I picked up along the way working for all these other businesses, I put into my business.
Oh, congratulations. And I think it's really beautiful as well, the terms of life, how they prepare us for the next stages, sometimes in the right way and the wrong way. So from your background, so you touched from Virginia to LA, and LA opened a lot of opportunities. So can you tell us a bit about that background and consultancy? Because of course, in the last 10 years, we shift radically from the web 1.0 to the web 2.0, now to the 3, and in some cases almost 4. And it's actually all these different areas of digital are still in parallel, because we have really things from the web 1.0, like Wikipedia, which is still one of the major websites in the world. And then we have Meta right now, Sandbox, and all these different things, with Metaverse right now exploding, and the NFTs. So how do you see this kind of progression, and as well in terms of your career? Because of course, it's something that right now, even if you work in an agency in the space of 1 year, you need to prepare yourself from shifting from digital marketing, social media, SEO, to go to how do you create NFT marketing? How do you create actually minting an NFT? How do you get the wallets and all these things? So if you can get a bit of that kind of professional background.
You know, I never thought about it, but I feel like I'm always kind of, because like I said, I ended up working at this agency where I was learning about digital and influencers and experiential marketing and all that before it was a thing that influencers got paid for, before they were this was before they were influencer marketing agencies. This was before people were paying people on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and Facebook to, you know, to promote their products. So I feel like in terms of my professional career, I've kind of always been very curious about what's maybe not next, but what's emerging. And I've somehow always found my way into that space as the emergence is happening. So, I blame that on my curiosity. Like I hear something, I'm like, oh, that seems a little bit dangerous and unstable. Let's go there. Which is kind of how Web3 is for me. But the agency was very experimental. Again, we didn't know exactly what we were doing. And this was before we had analytical tools to quantify the results of influencer marketing. So brands knew it worked, but they didn't know how well and what the return was. So, agencies I worked with got fired because they had huge outflow of cash and didn't know what happened and how it helped, in any significance to where they could justify doing it again, for example. I worked at an AI company where we had a really ambitious roadmap for what we wanted to do with artificial intelligence. And it's like, just as we were going to market, Alexa became the #1, smart home in-house appliance. Apple released the AirPods, and so it's all like in these risky zones about like, oh, we have this idea that rivals, anything you may have seen before in this space. And then sometimes someone beats you to it. But I think with our Web3 experience, we can still be the first, or one of the first to execute on it. So, I mean, yeah, I've learned also to move a lot faster, and really get the resources lined up to make things happen.
Completely, and I think this part is how you adapt to the continuous innovation, and actually how you make sure that you ride the wave, because sometimes it's the way you do it. So can you tell us, how did you start then your creative process? So you said that you use this for this, but I think about your company, about your organizations, about the Children of Andromeda. So if you can actually explain, how did you went from this agency, corporate world and business world to your creative spaces and to create what you're doing right now, and tell us what is you're doing right now for people that never heard.
Yeah, so Lost Children of Andromeda is a sci-fi fantasy series. I call it a multimedia series because it does have books, it does have visual imagery, and it also has music. And I'm working on basically publishing 10 stories in that universe, as kind of an ode to my childhood self that wrote the stories when I was young. And I was working at a fashion company, and I realized that the path I was on was going toward like a marketing executive in some industry. And I was like, is that really what I want to do with the rest of my life? And I actually got in a really bad fight with a friend of mine. I was on vacation and I got in a fight with a friend of mine because he said I didn't have the resilience. He said I didn't have the drive to create something of my own. He said, why do you always keep working for these other people when if you wanted to do a fashion, why don't you start your own fashion company? And I was like, well, I don't want to have a fashion company. But then it got me thinking, well, then what would I do? And so as with anything, it started with research. First, it was researching about what is independent publishing? What does it mean? What's the possibility if one does independently publish? Like, how do you scale? How do you get, sales and all that stuff? And at the time, this was 2014, I was reading about phenomenon like The Martian, where they sold 10,000 copies, publisher picked it up, they redistributed it, it got turned into a movie, and I was like, I can do that. But that's it's like a gem, it's like a pearl. But I felt confident that if I could build the universe to a certain level, that someone would come in and support me to take it to the next level. And so once I figured that out, I figured out what platforms do I need to go to? What's the editing process like? I was doing a ton of reading, And and the first book was terrible. It just failed completely. And it failed for a number of reasons. I didn't get the editing done that I needed. I didn't do very much marketing, and I didn't tell anyone I was writing a book. So I just like released it, and then was like, "Hey, by the way, I wrote a book, and here it is." And everyone was like, "What? I thought you did this thing. You know, I thought you were influencer marketing." So I took the book down. I'm not even gonna tell you the name because people will go look for it. It's out of print, but you can get. Some people have copies. You can get it on Amazon for like $75 or something, which is hilarious. And so then I spent the next 2 years working on another novel called Zosma. And that time I was like, okay, editing, great visuals. I hired new artists. I built a website. I did a Kickstarter, and I was telling everybody, I was like, this is coming, get ready for it. And so that one was a lot more successful. And because I was so excited about it and proud of it. And that book was okay as a book. And I learned a lot from that venture. And then I spent the next 3 years throughout the pandemic working on 2050Z. And I did everything that I did with Zosma, but like twice as big. So bigger Kickstarter campaign, bigger visual, like the visuals were like same artist, but even more high quality. The soundtrack was even more high quality. And behind the scenes, I'm working these other jobs, right? I'm consulting for entertainment clients and agencies. I'm writing pitch decks, for that first book, Zosma, I was working full time at that artificial intelligence company, and slowly the book business got bigger. The demand for bringing it to life got bigger, and the consulting work got smaller. And then the pandemic actually just zeroed out my consulting business, where I had no clients at all because of the uncertainty around March 2020. And it's interesting because I think you'll hear this from a lot of people who experienced the pandemic, that it's a reminder of like what you have that no one can take away from you. And you can take away my consulting business, influencers, experiences, but you can't take away my writing, can't take away my story. And so I really went inward and just focused on that. I focused on building an audience around the story. I focused on selling the story, which I hadn't been doing. I focused on writing the story, and even like more in a deeper way, which I hadn't really had the space or time to do before that. And what came out of it was something that has changed my life over the last year or so. I published actually last year in July around this time. So it's kind of like 1 year anniversary. But what that brought in terms of investment, partnerships, opportunities, was crazy. And so I knew I was doing something right. Like I knew I had figured out a formula that would work for scale, like a really powerful book series.
So I think it's very interesting what you said, because I understand and I feel the sense of juggling between being a creator, being a business, and being a marketeer, because you have to do all these three things, and the technologist. So on these three things, as a writer, as a creator, what would be the things that you, for people sharing our audience, that made the success of what you're trying to do, and as well that starts creating your community around the book and around the Lost Children of Andromeda, and as well right now your change from being a marketeer and a business personality to become a creator that is right now launching your NFTs, launching an entire more Web 3.0 experience around your own books, because I think that's the most important. And as well, if you could explain where people can find it and how does it works right now, the next steps.
Yeah. Well, I would say that wearing all those hats is really easy because I've done it for other people's businesses before. And I think that it always starts with the creative. Like, yes, business part is important, but I think it's the ideas and the imagination that really fuels the the desire, or the like the capacity to be the business part. Because let's be honest, if I was trying to do business about something I was not completely passionate about, I probably wouldn't be very good at it. So because I'm passionate about the story, I'm going to figure out the business, because that's what will make it run. And so I think for any creative, when you're starting something, passion is going to be the driver. Like, there's no one that's going to wake you up every morning and tell you to do what you need to do to bring your story to life, to, run your Web3 project, or to, make sure your business goes. And so it has to come from within. So that's the first thing I'll say, is it takes a lot of self-motivation and self-drive, and just like diligence. And so with Web3, that was especially true because it was a completely new medium. And I consider Web3 a medium, like NFTs are a medium, just like television, just like film, just like podcasts. NFTs are a medium for storytelling and engagement. And that's how we use the technology. So when I think about, so in terms of our NFT roadmap right now, what we did was we took elements of the book, like the technology, the main technology in the novel is called Sync, and we released those as NFTs, which they're actually already out. You can find them on OpenSea, called the Sync prototype, CYNQUE prototype. And those technological devices give you access to the world. They give you voting rights for future novels, so you can decide what images go in there. You can vote on book covers, you can vote on plot arcs, things like that. It gives you access to future characters that haven't been released yet, that you'll be able to claim during specific windows. It gives you access to artifacts, which help you build a world around your character and build your character's story. And then you also actually can earn the world's digital token. So there's a digital token that everyone uses in the story. And we wanted to give people the opportunity to earn that. And then they can use it to buy more artifacts, to buy other characters, to buy, in the future merchandise and all these types of things. So we really wanted to create this kind of gamified literature ecosystem that started with these NFT drops. And so the first one we've done already is Sync. There are 2 other Sync drops that are like advanced prototypes. So it's like kind of Apple iPhone 6 and then Apple iPhone 8 and then Apple iPhone 10. So the Sync prototype evolves with new benefits. And then we have these character releases that are hit in between. And that originally, our original strategy, that was meant to lead into this read to earn experience. So the whole point, the whole vision was to basically reinstill imagination in people, right? It's like, how do we activate people's imaginations? There's so many people that want to tell stories in the world. They want to write books, they want to write short stories. They have this creative outlet that they want to explore, but they don't, because they're an accountant, because they're a lawyer, because they're a teacher, like whatever it is. Someone told them at some point that like they couldn't tell stories, and I don't know where that came from, and people just don't. And so when they come into Lost Children of Andromeda, they're reminded that they can tell stories. And so all the things that we do, the read to earn piece, allows you to read the novel and earn parts of the story, like the artifacts, like the currency, everything like that. And so the original plan was that you could earn these things, and that would drive you into a creativity ecosystem where you could actually write within the Lost Children universe, but it would be yours to commercialize and everything like that. So you read the book, you get familiar with the universe, you earn artifacts, you earn characters, you earn technology as you go, and then you'll present it with an opportunity to actually tell your own story with your own character inside the Lost Children universe. I can't speak for everyone that is facing the end of the world in 2052. So to have a community help to basically adopt these characters, make them their own, and say, well, my character lives in this sanctuary and they're facing these types of disasters. And then, maybe the community loves these stories so much that we incorporate them into the main lore. And now you have a community built character that's then being featured alongside the main characters in the series. So that's how we built the NFT ecosystem. And the way in is meant to be through this technology called Sync. And we basically built the Discord of a certain number of people, kind of kept it small, and then deployed these prototypes to that hungry community of what we hope was storytellers. Now, I will say that in our community building, we did a lot of partnerships with blue chip projects. And so we got a lot more speculators in our community, probably than fans. People were very excited about the visuals, the concept, the roadmap. And what we found was as the market started to crash, people were disappearing. And what remained at the end were these people that were really excited about the book. They were reading it already. They were engaging in all of the prompts. They were, playing the Discord choose your own adventure games. They were grouping together in their like factions, their teams, and completing challenges together. And so it was honestly a blessing, because it really, if you were to sift it, what was left was the people that were really there for the long-term vision of the project. And being that we have, 9 more stories to tell, the NFT roadmap would go through all of them. So that's like a decade. So if you're here to like flip something between today and a month from now, you haven't even fully realized the full value of the property hasn't even been realized yet. So that's, I had my own community on Instagram, but they're tried and true readers. Most of them read novels, graphic novels, comic books. They don't know Web3, they don't understand it. The learning curve is very high and complicated, and most of them didn't want to engage in that side. So we built pretty much a new community that was Web3 native. And what we're seeing now is that we need to go back and onboard the fans, to have them experience Web3 without knowing that they're experiencing Web3, kind of like room them into it in a very simple way, maybe through partner platforms that have less friction, like they can charge with credit cards, being able to sell things that have immediate value. So instead of having, like, the watch is really beautiful, I'll send you some videos, but without context, you wouldn't know what it is. It's an MP4 of a watch with a hologram of an artifact from the world. But if I were to give you, for example, a 30-second or a minute-long animated short, a trailer that tells a story, you would know by watching it what you're getting into. And so I think that, because of the speculation market being what it is, it's really about going back to creating things that people can consume on their own and don't need a lot of context and explanation. It's like, here's an apocalyptic dystopian sci-fi fantasy story. Here's the premise. You can buy the premise, this kind of opening piece, and then you can buy the pieces of content associated with it. The actual story elements, the pages from the digital graphic novel, or the chapters of the audiobook. And you don't have to guess what you're getting. It's there.
It's very interesting the way you describe it. I think especially with the challenge with the crypto crash, and as well, where this has actually created new opportunities. And I think it's not different when the internet.com happened and all these things, because in the end of the day, there were a lot of wannabes, and then there were the people, because a lot of these things is differentiate between the hype and the real product or the real creativity, which is what you have. So I'm particularly interested on that, because I think it's one of the things we try to highlight here is this kind of building of a real community, but as well, of course, with realism, because of course you still need to have data and so forth, and you need to do a lot of marketing. But can you tell us a bit, how do you deal, or are you dealing with this part of building the community? And what are the highlights of your community? So you mentioned writers, some of them, they're not even so much digital, and people that understand science fiction and they're passionate about it. And most of people, everyone has an opinion about NFTs or, or metaverse, even if they don't have a clue. And normally the opinion is based on the negative stuff, not on the positive stuff. But if you could highlight that, especially how you've been building the community, that's a very important thing.
Yeah, I think, as for me, it's always been through like mentorship and support. I built my online community on Instagram through lives. Like I was going live with different creators. I was getting really curious about their stories, asking them why they started writing, why I started creating. Artist collaboration with artists was another way I built community. Having them imagine the characters a certain way. I did a lot of interviews. Was always a way. And Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse rooms and all of that was like basically getting in front of as many people as possible, and not just talking about what I was doing, but actually asking what they wanted to do. Like, oh, what are you passionate about? And then people will normally say, something like, oh, I've always wanted to write a novel. And when I say I wrote a novel, people always tell me, oh, I've always wanted to write a novel. And I find that serendipitous, because if you tell me you want to write a novel, I'm going to help you write a novel, or create a graphic novel or create a comic book or whatever it is. So I really built my community, I believe, by sharing really powerful content and being of service to the community. So whatever they had questions they had, I'm always in the back channels, like answering, being very open. So, I think people said that because my page originally was a lot more, especially on Instagram, was a lot more visual, meaning it was just like artwork and characters and stuff. But when people started seeing me on live, they realized I was a person, and they started to reach out. And I think that being an open book means that people will feel comfortable sharing and asking for support, rather than feeling like they can't, or you're too good, or you're too important, or whatever. So I would jump on Zooms with people and like listen to them tell their whole book idea. And then we'd like workshop the plot points and stuff like that. And even though it was very one-for-one, meaning I wasn't building like large community, but these people were like important, they were loyal, and they got really a lot of value out of our conversation. So, with Web3, it was faster, because we were partnering with these different projects. But if people got through the Discord and got through the lore and got through the stuff, then we knew they were there to stay, because it's a lot to digest. So I think, when it comes to community, it's really like, what do they need? And so what I found is that we have a community of artists, musicians, writers, storytellers, screenwriters, comic book creators, poets, songwriters. And sometimes people just need a playground. They just need a playground to go walk in, no pressure, and just play. And that's what we want Lost Children to be. If you want to make music for your characters instead of writing short stories for your characters, make music for your characters. If you want to draw your characters and make portraits and sell those, do that. If you want to make comic books, if you want to make novels, if you want to make animated shorts, like, it's how do we allow people to play more? That's what our community's for, is so that people can have fun again and use their imaginations again, and kind of break out, of the kind of the normal, mundane, day to day.
And this is actually, I think, the biggest challenge and opportunity that we have with the metaverse and all the things we're talking about. So tell us a bit right now about what is Stays the product, and I'm talking about the product because it's your book and is your NFTs and different things. You touch a bit where you can actually buy it, but as well, let's say for someone that doesn't know much about it, so I will just put all the links here for people listening to us. So there's the Lost Children of Andromeda. That is an immersive sci-fi experience that mixes elements of literature, art, and music. And the story starts with Zosma, a dystopian novel following a young African-American man on his heroic quest to rescue an alien refugee. So I will start here, I'll stop here, and tell us from here how you create the NFT of Shoot that incorporates NFTs into the reading experience, and as well the different things you touch partly. But if you could go right now, very detailed. You mentioned a watch, you mentioned different things. I think this is very important because I think for people listening to us, in the end of the day, NFTs is just a tool. Okay, we can do a lot of things with them, but it's about our creativity. It's not just about the speculative part and try to collect some Bored Apes. But if you are a creator, it's more about how you can actually create revenue streams, build a community like we're talking so far, but as well creating specific parts of the narrative. And now we put all these different things together. And as well, like you said, television, music, film, they're all been doing this, but it's about the ones that can actually create better stories. And I think one touch, last detail, is that I think the NFT metaverse narrative is positioned right now, the creators to be on the central stage. So because until now, the Web 2.0 would put us on the stage of Apple and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and everything is about them, not about us. So here is, and we are using, of course, in this channel, YouTube, there's nothing wrong about it. But now, these tools can actually be owned by us and you can monetize in a slightly different way.
Yeah, that's very true. So actually, Zosma is not the first book. 2050Z is the first book, even though it was published second. So 2050Z, Time and Salvation is the book. I actually have it here, so I'm gonna hold it up.
Yeah, please show.
This is the.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. This is a color version, but here's an example of the art that's in there, except it's black and white and the other things. The book has these questions meant to, kind of get you thinking about your superpower. So at the end of every major section, they'll ask you a question. And so it really is meant to be like an empowering, immersive sci-fi journey where by the end, you're thinking about like, wait, what is my superpower? And am I using it? And what would it mean if I did use it? So someone who's going through this may at the end want to create something. They may be inspired to create something or use their gift in some way. It doesn't always have to be creative. It could be something like, it could be anything. It could be giving, it could be volunteering, it could be, sewing or anything. So, so with the NFTs, it was meant to, the NFT experience is meant to get people to their own imagination, to get people to remember what their power is. And so when we created it step by step, it was like, what's the path for a person to go from not knowing anything about lost children, not really being connected to their own personal power in the world, and then get reminded of that power and then get them using that power. So how we did that was, part of it is the top layers, like the Discord experience. We started asking people questions every day. We started to, seed out, chapters at a time of the book. We had discussions, things like that. And then we introduced the NFTs, which give you access to the universe, which will allow you to eventually use your creative power, right? And then the third layer is just reading the book itself, which in the read to earn context would allow you to, it would be like an incentive to get through the story because you're earning as you go, just like when you're playing a game. And so by getting to the story, you again get reminded of your power. You may be called to use it. And then that feeds back into the top layer of the NFT ecosystem, which is basically like, oh, you want to use your power? Here's how you can do it, like right here. And then do you want to share? You know, here's where you do it in the Discord. So that's step by step how we did it. We pulled out all the elements, you know, with the artifacts. We started with technology because there were basically 10 technological artifacts that made sense to feature. And we wanted to start with those because they're very prominent and they're, you know, they're easy to digest. They're like sci-fi elements. They're not like abstract alien concepts that I made up. They're pretty hard, you know, hard sci-fi bits and pieces. So, so we basically extracted from the story the elements that could translate into, you know, non-fungible tokens, into digital assets, and then said, which are the things that people would want to covet? Like, what are the things people would want to earn from this world? And we built those things. So the technology is important because if you read the story, you know that you cannot survive the end of the world without sync. If you don't have the sync, you don't know anything, because that's where all information comes from. There's no YouTube, there's no Google, there's no Apple, there's no iPhone. Everything comes through sync. Your store, everything that you have is stored on sync. Your currency, your identity, your information, it's all on the sync, and everyone has one. So that's why we chose sync as the first NFT that we released. And then the other layer is the evolutionaries. And so the evolutionaries are characters that were awakened by the arrival of this alien energy. And there were 2 landings, one in 2030 and one in 2040. And each one activated the latent DNA in these evolutionaries, allowing them to manifest abilities. And the abilities were based on 8 archetypes. And I don't want to spoil too much, so I won't go into that, but just know that when you awaken a character, it would be, when the character awakens, when the evolutionary awakens, it could be one of 8 types. And so when we built the NFTs, it was the sync gets you access to the character because, you know, you need the sync to live in the world, and then you get the character to bring the character to life. And then you can start to write about the character, and the artifacts help you move through the world. So if you have a drone, if you have, you know, QB tokens, you can pay for things. If you have, you know, the hoverboard, you can play the like the backyard games that the kids play. So, you know, and there's more artifacts. There's research, there's relics, there are, you know, tablets and crystals and all kinds of things that come in the future. And all of those, your character's interaction with those things will help build their story even more. So it's kind of like when we were kids and we were like given like a story starter. And it's like, okay, here's the character, here's some objects, and you can go. And you can start to weave the story and say, okay, well, this is what happened. So yeah, so that's the NFT ecosystem. There's artifacts, there's currency, in-world currency. There are, and then there are characters that you can use.
No, that's fantastic, and you have your own multiverse there. So it's multiverse that can become a metaverse. So I know that you're passing around the time of the interview, which is very exciting as well, your universe. And I think especially it's beautiful, this concept, and as well entire ecosystem that you build around the characters, around the narrative, around an entire, actually, I would say, well, it's like any kind of universe from Marvel to DC to Game of Thrones. What you're building has massive opportunities, and I wish you a lot of success for that. So one of the last questions I have is, because your work, and you will do in the NFTs, but there's a lot of opportunities right now to scale this in film and expanded metaverse environments, gamings and so forth. I know that you're touching that, but for now is the NFTs. So what's your views and actually what's your goals in terms of this? Because of course the opportunities are massive, especially with creators like you. I think the metaverse is done precisely for creators like you, but it's not easy how we actually have to put it in practice, because you need to have, of course, one thing is when you have already quite an established audience and you become a star on that level, and then it's easy to get some kind of Hollywood or big house that comes. But what you're building is you're building from scratch as you go, and that's the most noble and as well most interesting, because of course then when the big players come, you're already prepared for the rest. But I would like to see your views and as well your journey and roadmap on that.
Yeah, my view on it is, as a creative, I have the tendency to want to build things and create things. And sometimes that's healthy, and sometimes it's not if you don't have an audience to deploy those things to. So like, for example, for us to build a metaverse right now wouldn't make any sense. It would be very cool, but we wouldn't have enough people that would go into it to make it make sense, right? If we wanted to build a game, similarly, that would be the case. We wanted to do TV, film, whatever. So, you know, the thing that people don't seem to understand, or that I have heard, you know, when I think about like the Web3 side, is that you still need foundation. And what we saw is that a lot of people were able to, you know, release PFPs, get a lot of hype around it, get signed by agencies, get adapted very quickly. And that's like its own, you know, that's like its own trajectory. And so now, you know, what we're back to is the reality of how it works, which is you still need to build community. It needs to be sustainable. It needs to have longevity. And there needs to be a very, you know, a clear vision for, you know, like how you want to bring it to life. So I would say that for us, what we're focusing on is distribution. We're focusing on like, how do we get the story in more hands? Is it a novel? Is it a graphic novel? You know, is it an audiobook? You know, what is the thing that's going to penetrate to where people want this so bad that we continue to build something else, right? The next phase of the NFT project, you know, the next story comes out, all that. And so that's, you know, that's where we are. And then for me, you know, I really just set out to write all 10 books. That was my real mission, was just to finish the series before I died. And it's really grown into basically creating this community built franchise where everyone's contributing to the lore of the Lost Children. And so when the movie comes out or they do the limited series release, people know that they were actually part of the building of the, you know, the intellectual property, and that the assets they have are going to increase in value because they were part of the building of it, because they were loyal, because they stuck around, because they shared, you know, because they participated. So it's like, how do we all grow together where people are getting back value for the, you know, for the work they put in, but then also they're getting to use their creativity at the same time. So yeah, the big vision is everyone knows what Lost Children of Andromeda is. They know the story, they love the characters, you know, they're cosplaying, you know, there's a game in the works, which I think would be a fabulous game. You know, we have 3, maybe 4, maybe 8 films. You know, we have some limited series. Some of the community members' characters, you know, they become animations, they get picked up. There's side stories like, you know, like how Marvel does, where they do TV series, and they don't have to come from us. They can be community grown stories that get optioned and adapted. So it really is like a free playground. Like, come in, participate, create, and have fun. So that's the big vision. Give me 5 years.
No, it's hard work every day. Come on, look at, I believe is like what, We can go to Star Wars, and what George Lucas did is it was a continuous work. He invented most of the things that now 20, 30 years, 50 years almost after it was built, is starting to work in mainstream. So most of the technology didn't even exist. It was all done in his head. So I think it's really impressive. So congratulations, first of all. I love your vision and what you're putting together. And I know as well that it's very special because you've been doing it with all the passion and as well the experimentation, but as well putting all these parts of the puzzle together, the creativity, the community, the products as well around that, and as well right now the platforms, which is key. And I think this is for people listening to us. I would probably ask you to engage and check everything that Jason is doing, and we'll put all the links for all the different things, because it's a great way to look at NFTs not purely from a short-term perspective. And I love that you said for the next 5 years. I always believe in long-term, because in the end of the day, if you want to make everything in one short term, are you going to end up in actually a lot of trouble, or you're probably going to actually scammed. So there's no short terms, there's only medium, long term, and a lot of hard work and as well passion in what you're doing. I don't know, Jason, if you want just to highlight where people can find you, it's always coming from you is great, although all the links will be here on the channel where we are distributing this interview, both on YouTube and our own website, citiesabc.com and Open Business Council. But if it's coming from you, the things where people can find you, mention Amazon, but as well where we can actually find on your websites and so forth.
Yeah, so lostchildren.xyz has a lot of information about the NFTs and the NFT roadmap. It doesn't talk that much about the book, but it's very Web3 centric. It looks like a game, actually, a little bit. Lost Children of Andromeda on Instagram is where you can kind of find like my personal storytelling journey, because I mix in a lot of like Comic-Con appearances and tour stuff, and mixed with like pictures and visuals and everything like that. So that's more of like the journey of the series coming to life. And then LCOA 2052 on Twitter is where, again, it's like Web3 mixed with book. So that's probably the most holistic platform in terms of sharing both sides of that journey. And then, is that it? Yeah, those are the three. Oh, Discord. Oh my God, I almost forgot Discord. Yeah, Discord. Yes, you join the Discord. The Discord is very fun. We have an onboarding game you do in the beginning where you choose yourself, you choose your power, you choose your position in a world about to end. There's a game that you can play that takes you through one of the first disasters that starts the end of the world. And yeah, we have more games coming. You can also read the book for free on Medium. So that's another place. We're releasing the chapters in halves, so you get half a chapter every week. And then, yeah, I think those are the places: Discord, Twitter, Instagram, the website, and then Medium.
Yeah, and you even have something on LinkedIn, the Cluster Chronicles company, and as well the links for the different things.
Yeah, so the Cluster Chronicles, okay, so the Cluster Chronicles is technically the publishing company. Andromeda Beats is the NFT, is the Web3 company. So I had to separate them in order to do the NFTs, because we're dealing with different intellectual property, we're dealing with different assets. There's an investor associated with that. So it's just it had to keep it clean, it had to be separate. But so Andromeda Beats is like the Web3 extension arm of Lost Children of Andromeda. And the Cluster Chronicles is the publishing company that will likely do any adaptations and all that stuff.
Yeah, this is very important, because this all the things that the creator needs to be involved in, as well all these areas of NFTs, creative economy, Web 3.0 is about all these relationships. Jason, an honor to have you here. Congratulations for all this fantastic creative work. We'll put all these links here for people listening to us. I want to thank you and wish you that in the future this will be bigger, better, and always inspiring people to change and getting a fantastic moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.